there's the level of three different types of pedia. There is the pedia, the redemption through Torah. There is the redemption through avoida, tefillah b'tzibur. There's the redemption through gemilas chasadim. These are three different ways. One is in a way of a war. One is in a way of peace. That's the way of Torah. And then there is a level, an intermediate level, which is the level of the Cherev Shel Shalom. It's a sword of peace. And the Rebbe in the next paragraph can explain why each one of these are which. And earlier he left off that we are trying to bring from the Pod of Shalom. He begins with the first thing that the Chazal say. The Pod of Shalom Nafshi is talking about the level of Torah, and then it also hints at Gemilas Hasadim, and it hints then afterwards Mikravli and davening. So or Rabim Hoyimadi, like the Chazal say in the Maimon Chazal, that it hints at davening, even though the order of the day is different. First there's davening, then there's Torah, then there is the mitzvahs, Gemilas Hasadim, tzedakah, etc. So we said the reason why he starts off with Torah is that the Torah's type of ultimate peace, higher than the Cherev of Shalom, and definitely higher than the redemption that comes as a result of war, the redemption that comes through peace of Torah, is meant to influence and impact all these others, the davening, Cherev Shel Shalom, and the Gemilas Chasadim type of, the mitzvahs type of embattling. So now, like I said before, here's where he's going to explain specifically why Torah is called redemption and peace specifically, and davening is an intermediary level, and mitzvahs is totally. So we left off on the fourth page of the copies, page Ches, Ois Gimel, line 7. So he says, the idea behind this is to explain what the idea of Torah is in regards to this redemption and peace, why Torah is a level of peace. Behold, my word is like fire. Just like fire is not susceptible to impurity, it cannot become impure. So too, the words of Torah do not acquire tumah. Even the way Torah is not Torah, the way it's Natzilus, but even the way the Torah descended through all the elements, and it's coming down into this world, and there's a person that's Tamei. So that person that's Tamei, there is no prohibition, there is no reason, there's no excuse for him not to learn Torah, because the Torah is unaffected by his tumah. When it comes to other things, bringing karbanos, or in a more refined way, someone wants to go to mikveh before he davens, okay, there's something to that. But Torah person can do even in a state of tumah, because Torah is not something that's susceptible to tumah. So this means, he says in line 11, though the Torah descends down here below, and it does what it has to do. One of the ideas of fire, in other words, the Torah was likened to fire. Now, fire has in it many characteristics, if you will, not just that it's not susceptible to tumah. One of the characteristics of fire is that fire can be grasped down here. When you have the oil and the wick, it draws the fire down. Another characteristic of fire is that it influences its environment. It affects its environment. It brings light. It brings warmth. So therefore, the fire is not divorced completely from this existence. It comes down here, and it affects the world. Still in all, the way Torah affects the world, the way Torah refines the world, it's not in such a way that the person that's studying Torah is engaged in the physicality itself. He's not engaged in physicality. He's in his room. He's somewhere in a beis medrash. He's far away from the world, studying topics and ideas that Torah is discussing. Because he's studying Torah. Who is primarily involved in the study of Torah? His godly soul and his intellectual soul. And then you could also impact, like we said, it's an influence also on Nefesh when the study is in a way that's appropriate for Torah. He does it in the appropriate manner. He doesn't do it as a kardum lachtachba to make a living from it, or to become a balgaiva from it, to become arrogant from it, or even worse, lakanter, to anger Hashem. So then, azay nafshe bahamis v'chinas mekabel belvad. So then, the nefesh bahamis is only a bystander; it's only receiving. There's no need to battle the nefesh bahamis because you are learning Torah in the midst of learning Torah. The since the intellectual soul is an intermediary between the godly soul and the animal soul, like it's explained in Mamorim of Parshat Kokoisai and in many places. So therefore, the job and the function of the Nefesh HaSichlis does is like any intermediary, it brings two disparate things together. Like a broker brings together a buyer and a seller. The same thing, any intermediary is about bringing together two that are completely separated. The Nefesh HaLekis and Nefesh HaBamis are completely different worlds. So the Nefesh HaSichlis brings and causes to bridge the Torah learning of the Nefesh HaLekis with the Nefesh HaBamis. He says in line 22, Ine kasher Nefesh HaSichlis makira, the hert inu shel seichel, when the intellectual soul recognizes, it feels an idea of intellect, that the Nefesh HaSichlis recognizes what the Torah itself says, that he chochmaskem benaskem le'inei kol ha'amim, it's your wisdom, it's your understanding in the eyes of the nations. So Nefesh HaSichlis recognizes something that's close to its heart, recognizes this is something I appreciate and I like, this is something I can relate to, it's intellectual. How much more so that when we have that it's not just the seichel of the Torah, that it's chachmaskim binaskim, but he also that it's even in regards to the nations it's considered intellect, but it's also the idea of godly intellect. When it recognizes, when the Nefesh HaSichlis comes to even a higher realization, not just that it's a godly intellect, but it's an intellect that's about a godly light. So that Nefesh HaSichlis is so impressed by it that it translates it to the world of the Nefesh HaBahamis. Poil Gamal Nefesh HaBahamis. This influences also the animal soul. Either in a way that Nefesh HaBahamis could understand the explanation of the godly soul via the capability of the intellectual soul. In other words, I remember one of our Mishpim, I think it was Melech Tzvibel, explained that when we speak to our Nefesh HaBahamis during davening, it's a time to speak to the Nefesh HaBahamis ideas of godliness. We need to use terminology that's not just words of the mimer, but we need to explain it as if we were explaining the topic to someone that's not yet Shomer Torah mitzvahs, or lahavdil, someone that's not even a yid, because that's something that Shabbamis could relate to. What's the instrument? What's the intermediary to take godly ideas that Nefesh HaLekis understands about Hashem and translate it to the world of Nefesh HaBahamis, Nefesh HaBahamis should be able to understand also, that's through the Nefesh HaSichlis, through the intellectual soul. So one way of a person learning Torah is that the Nefesh HaLekis, through the Nefesh HaSichlis, brings the ideas down into the world of the Nefesh HaBahamis. Then there could be some type of ideas that are too lofty for Nefesh HaBahamis to be able to take in, and we need to take it in only in the world of the Nefesh HaLekis. Then, what does Nefesh HaBahamis do? So again, there's no war, there's no battle, because that's the whole point that he's trying to bring out over here, that Torah is not about a battle. Torah is about peace. So what's the other option that could occur if the Nefesh HaBahamis is not on a level to be able to receive it, or the topics are too high for Nefesh HaBahamis to receive, even through the Nefesh HaSichlis? So then, line 29, or it's in a way that the Nefesh has the Nefesh HaBahamis becomes totally nullified when the person is learning lofty things in Kabbalah or Chassidus or whatever that's beyond the world of Nefesh HaBahamis. This is two components or two ways of redemption and peace. But an idea of an opposition, that the Nefesh HaBahamis should oppose it, that there should be a need of a war, top of the 5th page, that's not possible. Not only is it not, there's no need for a war, there's not even a need for a sword of peace. Like we said before, the sword of peace is when a nation passes through our country with not intentions to do war with us, but it's passing through our country because it wants to do war somewhere else, but it's coming fully armed. So it's coming, that's what's called a sword of peace. Did I say sword of war? I don't remember. Sword of peace, that there's a sword over there, but it's in a peaceful way. There's weapons over there, but in a peaceful way. So even that is not to be found in studying Torah. It's only redemption in a manner of peace. Now he's going to go on to the next thing, davening. Davening, he's going to explain, is that middle ground, the sword of peace. It's the second paragraph on page 5. There's also a sword of peace. It's the idea of davening. That we say, that Yaakov Avinu said, that I acquired and I got the lands of Shechem, etc., with my sword and with my bow. And the Targum Onkelos translates it, that what's it mean with my sword and my bow? It says, B'tzloisi ubeba'usi. Tzloisi v'usi means tefillah in Aramaic, with my davening and with my request. It's also a play on the word Bekashti from the word Bakoshosi, my request. So in other words, we find the very fact that the same word is used for these totally different things. Charbi Bekashti means literal weapons, or it means davening. That indicates that davening involves weaponry. Tefillah in Yana Sulam Mutzavarza, because tefillah, its idea is like a ladder standing on the ground. And the top of the ladder reaches to the heavens. The Hainu, this means, what is the purpose of this ladder? To raise up those things that are on the ground. You have to go up on the ladder to raise it up to the heavens. But the primary part of davening is to effect that you shall love Hashem your God in all your heart, with both your Yitzarim, Hey Nefesh HaLekis V'Hei Nefesh HaBahamis. So since you're dealing both with the godly soul and the animal soul, so we can understand already how Cherev comes in, how a sword comes in. Therefore, davening has to be through the combination of the godly soul and the animal soul together. Not like learning that really the Nefesh Bahamis' involvement is not necessary. It's just Nefesh Elokis is able to translate the ideas through Nefesh Sichos and Nefesh Bahamis. Either it'll understand or become this battle, but it's not about bringing the Nefesh Bahamis into the picture. Davening is about both, like it says, B'chol levavecha, b'shnei yitzarecha. You need to have both, Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara. The beginning is taka from the godly soul. Like it says, Mashcheni Lashon Yachid. In the pasuk it says, Mashcheni Acharecha Norutza, and it's seemingly contradictory, that pasuk. Draw me in the singular, and then it says, we will run after you. So it's the draw me should draw us, or draw me and I will run after you. Because the order is that in davening, it first begins with the Nefesh Elokis. That's why it begins, Mashcheni Lashon Yachid, draw me in the singular. After it says, we will run after you. Nefesh Elokis or Nefesh Bahamis biyachad, the godly soul and the animal soul together have to be involved in the process of running and rushing to Hashem. That's the davening. Therefore, since the Nefesh Bahamis has to be part of the picture as well, so after the parentheses, after the brackets, we need to explain to the animal soul that the Nefesh Bahamis needs this bittul to godliness. And we use every tool in our disposal, including until for this sake, to be able to bring about in Nefesh Bahamis a bittul to godliness. It's necessary to mention and to remind it of its root and its source from the holy beasts that's in the Merkava. Because we know the animals down here, including our inner animal, the Nefesh Bahamis, comes from the malachim that are called animals above, that we know that there's the Pnei Aryeh, Pnei Shor, the lion's face, the oxen face, the eagle's face, etc. So by reminding and telling the Nefesh Bahamis about your own team, your own source, your own essence, has this great bittul and love for Hashem, so that is meant to bring the Nefesh Bahamis into the picture. That's the idea of the Barachos of Krishma that we speak about, what the Efanim and the Srafim and the Chayes HaKodesh, what they are all saying and experiencing. By days of Poil Shagam Nefesh Bahamis Tagiel Lavas Hashem, by reminding Nefesh Bahamis about this, and by everything else Nefesh Elokis does to bring Nefesh Bahamis into the picture, it influences and affects that also the animal soul should also reach a love of Hashem, like it says, like we said before. Not like in Torah, where the Nefesh Bahamis is just a sideshow, it's not the main point. In Torah, it's the godly soul becoming joined with Hashem. It's not about the Nefesh Bahamis. So that's why, since we're engaging with the Nefesh Bahamis, it's an idea of a sword. It's an idea of charbi b'kashti, cherev. But on the other hand, it's a cherev shel shalom. It's a sword of peace, not an actual war. Still in all, he says in line 21, since by davening he's not engaged with the world, only with his animal soul, the way it is together with the godly soul. In other words, it's not a separate type of, tier. We have a Nefesh Elokis direction, we have a Nefesh Bahamis direction. No, we are joining them together. We are getting them together in the same program. That's why it says with both your Yitzarim. Therefore, there's no need for an actual war. It's interesting. In other Amarach Siddhis, he speaks about how it is a level of war. He's going to talk about it soon, that it's Shas Loisa, Shas Krava. But here he's going to say, since we're getting them both together, so it's not actually a war. So he says in line 25 in the brackets, Shari Zoihi Nefesh Bahamis. This is the animal soul. Shekshura im Nefesh Elokis. It's the Nefesh Bahamis, the way it's bound up with the godly soul. So they're both together in the same program with the same type of direction. Putting it in a different way, what is the essential nature of the Nefesh Bahamis by Yid? It's not just a Nefesh Bahamis. It has something that allows it more to be in concert with Nefesh Lakis. He says, Nefesh Bahamis should be Yisrael, the Jewish Nefesh Bahamis, Shehi b'mayim medumatz of Naila Yoiser menafshes umas ha'olam. The animal soul by Yid is from Klippas Noiga, which is so much higher than the souls, the Nefesh Bahamis of the nations of the world is from Sholosh Kibzat Meis. Kimavur b'Sefer HaTanya b'Tchilosoi Soif Perek Aleph Reish Perek Beis Achilosh v'Emnei Yisrael umas ha'olam, like it's explained in Tanya at the beginning. At the end of Perek Aleph, he says the difference between the Nefesh Bahamis of a Yid versus the Nefesh Bahamis of a Goy. And then also in the beginning of Perek Beis, he mentions that only Yidden have Nefesh Lakis. So, therefore, since the Nefesh Bahamis of a Yid is totally different, it could run along with the Nefesh Lakis as well. Because Klippas Noiga is not the antithesis and complete opposite of Kedusha. It's an intermediary level, so it can be together with the Nefesh Lakis. There's an expression that Chazal say, a person should always anger his Nefesh Lakis on his Nefesh Bahamis. So the Rebbe explains, what's this idea of anger? It's like a threat. It's like holding the sword over the head without actually going to war. This anger of the Nefesh Lakis that he has to have over the Nefesh Bahamis, that's the sword that he's holding on to. Top of page 6. But through this sword comes about the idea of peace, that there is a sword of peace. In other words, it's like arming oneself so no one will attack you. Being strong with weapons, so you are enough of a threat to your enemy, so your enemy doesn't have to fight with you. So the same thing over here. Now he says right away, the word shalom already indicates that there's opponents over here. So he says in line 2, as soon as you use the word shalom, which is peace, that indicates there is some type of separation. There's two different things that need to make peace. If there's only one thing, the whole idea of peace doesn't apply. But only when there's two lines, two different approaches, two different directions, then there has to be a center line. That's the idea that he makes peace in his exalted ones. Who are the exalted ones? It's talking about the Malachim. Michal, who is the minister in charge of snow, and Gavriel is the minister in charge of fire, meaning two disparate avodas. This is fire, this is snow, this is Ava, this is Yira. So you need to make peace between them. So the same thing when we talk about there's a peace in the person, there's Pada B'Shalom, so you're talking about two separate things. So too also in the avoid of a person that you need to make peace. So this is by davening, but by Torah we said the Nefesh Bahamis is not really a challenge. So why is there peace even by Torah? So he says, to note, the idea of peace also applies concerning Torah. Although the Torah is one Torah that was given from one God, so therefore there is no disparities in Torah, there's no two opposites that you have to make peace between them. Torah descended below and was enclosed in all matters, even in false arguments. In other words, that one person may be lying. Through Torah engaging and discussing the false claims and the true claims, That's how you clarify what the truth is. So that itself is an idea of peace. On the other hand, it's not a sword of peace, like in davening. Why? But in Torah, it's not a sword of peace. Since there's no opponent, the main study is the godly soul studying. Is the nefesh habahamis with the program or not? That's not so relevant, though nefesh habahamis might get into it. As opposed to avoid of davening, not tefillah she is spallen. Nefesh habahamis, the primary idea of davening is that you should daven with the animal soul. With both of you yitzarim. But the beginning of it starts with nefesh elokis. First you start off with nefesh elokis, and then you influence nefesh habahamis. So since there is a certain engagement with the nefesh habahamis, but not a complete war, therefore it's in the way of a sword of peace.